D, are you feeling a lot better than half the damn team over there? Because I looked at that injury report, Pat. I mean,
18 guys, man.
listen, brother, you don't got to do the whole thing because that'll be the whole entire segment. But just give us the important parts of this ridiculously lengthy injury report.
Yeah, first and foremost, you got 18 people that are on the injury report that are either DNP, which is did not participate, or are flat out just dealing with something that they're trying to play through. Headliners would be, well, first let's start with the good news. The good news is that Marvion Overshown with that bursitis in his knee. He was a full participant on yesterday. He also participated in practice on Wednesday, though they didn't have to give an injury report on Wednesday because it's a Monday night football game. But that's 2 consecutive days of full practice for him. So Demo looks like he's going to be a full go, and they're definitely, going to want him on the field,
Yeah.
even if only for his continued development because he's starting to really find his groove. Daron Bland, you can draw a line through him. Another week of no Daron Bland. He did not participate again in practice. I keep hearing that he's close, but we're 12-ish weeks away from him having the surgery on a stress fracture.
Right.
I'm not entirely sure what the holdup there is, but Mike McCarthy said yesterday that they're not having conversations of shutting him down for the season, which I personally don't agree with. At 3-6, staring at a possible 3-7, I said you shut him down and get him healthy for 2025, which is going to be an all-important year for him. But they're not talking about that quite yet, so. But you won't see Daron Bland on the field. Kalen Carson, he missed practice with an illness. It's the same illness that took Jake Ferguson out of practice on yesterday. And as anyone knows, we don't, when it comes to this, either it's one day or it can take them out of a game. Good news is they have an extra day with the game being on Monday night. So hopefully at least Jake Ferguson can play because this offense is already kind of stagnant. And then you take one of your best weapons off the field, it's just going to get worse. So if you think you were at rock bottom against the Eagles, you don't want to see what that looks like without Jake Ferguson on the field. I know he had the turnover, but that's not something he typically does. Tyler Guyton, he practiced, but he's still dealing with a shoulder injury. So they're still trying to determine if Tyler Guyton's going to take the start at left tackle or if it's going to be Austin Richards, who played well in his small sample size against the Eagles, or if they're going to activate Chuma Edoga to the active roster, which he's now practiced twice, limited yesterday, but he's now practiced twice, so he's kind of trending. Jordan Lewis, that's a headliner to keep an eye on. He did not practice with a neck injury. He was doing rehab work with Hunter Lipke. I had to pause on that one because
you running out of breath.
Man, how many? Right. Not just that. It's just look at the names I'm saying, man. Like Jordan Lewis, Hunter Lipke. These are some of your only bright spots, and now they're dealing with something. They didn't practice on yesterday. Zach Martin, he didn't practice. It was a rest day / dealing with the shoulder injury. And I mean, those are your headliners from there, and it just goes on and on. Like I said, 18 guys on this list. Murphy's Law.
Nah, indeed, man. And I want to get to now our mailbag segment. And one of the questions revolves around one of those guys on the injury report. And you kind of touched on it a little bit here. But this question comes from our guy, Aaron, from the 516. He's like our mailbag MVP. He said, if you had to guess.
Yeah, here, OG. What's up, Aaron?
Aaron, he's a beast with the questions. He said, if you had to guess, what happens to Daron Bland after this year? Trade, re-sign, or play it out? I have my opinions, but I want to hear yours.
I think that they try to re-sign for a couple reasons. I mean, number one, outside of the injury that he's dealing with, he's not an injury-prone player, and he's coming off of a record-setting season as far as pick sixes. He's still currently the reigning leader in interceptions from last year. And you don't move on from a guy like that any more than you would entertain moving on from a guy like Trayvon Diggs. The Cowboys want to finally see Trayvon Diggs and Daron Bland on the field at the same time. And you want that duo to stay intact for as long as possible. But you also have to keep in mind that Trayvon Diggs, he had his extension done last year. So now going into 2025, he's approaching the midway point of that contract. So whether you like it or not, you now have to at least start having the dialogue in your mind about will it be a third extension or third contract, I should say, for Trayvon Diggs, or, how does that end? And if that's the case, the fact that you're having that conversation means you can't really afford to have that conversation and ship Daron Bland away or let him leave in free agency following next season. So for me, for my money, I say you keep Daron Bland, especially considering Kalen Carson, he kind of flew out of the gates against the Cleveland Browns, but between injury and just struggling when he's on the field, you don't have that definitive guy to replace Bland anyway right now. So for
Right.
me, keep Daron Bland on this team.
The trade I'm going to eliminate because this team just doesn't do that. Historically speaking, they have not recouped more than a fifth round pick since the, I believe, Herschel Walker trade. So they're not going to trade
Yep.
away their top guy. So you can forget about that. The re-sign or play it out, though, I think is interesting because history suggests, if I had to guess, that they will re-sign him because they love to try to get at these guys that have been injured. I think it'd be even better for them if they just flat out sat him down all year, and they'd use that against him when they did go to the table next year. Like, hey, look, you had a foot situation. We're not really sure what that foot's going to be like, but we're willing to give you a healthy contract. A record setting? No. A top 5, 10? Probably not. Maybe he'll hover around 10 or so, but something where he's making more money than he is now. They love to do that. Terrence Steele, one of those guys. Jalen Smith, although
I was
Jalen,
just about to say.
yeah, you know, you can go all the way back to Barry Church. You know, when he tore his Achilles,
Yep.
they came to Barry, and Barry even came out and regretted signing the contract because he was like, they got me. You know, I'm healing up, and they say we want to extend you. Up, Michael Gallup, another guy. So this is their MO. I can 100% see them re-signing him. However, if I'm the Cowboys, I would play this out, and just because you haven't really done well, right, doing this. Michael Gallup, Terrence Steele, right? It hasn't worked for you of late, so I would just play this thing out, and if everything works, you can sign him during the season if he's back to what he was.
Well, I agree. The only part of what you're saying that I'm on the opposite side of the fence is as far as like letting it play out. I think this was a setback of some sort, or I should say I know this was a setback of some sort. But if you look at the initial injury itself, we're not talking about Terrence Steele with the torn ACL, and we're not talking about a ruptured Achilles or any of these season-ending injuries or injuries that, you know, easily ended the season when you knew what the diagnosis was.
Sure.
This is a stress fracture that for whatever reason is just dragging out. Right, so I'd be much more comfortable looking at a player who had a stress fracture and saying, yeah, okay, this is not, you know, recovering as quickly as we like, but it's simply a stress fracture. It's not a devastating injury. I'm going to go ahead and give you this bag right now for a couple more reasons. We talked about the Trayvon Diggs variable as far as future tense is concerned, but and I talked about Kalen Carson. He's got a lot of work that needs to be done. Israel Mukuamu, he's in a contract year. Jordan Lewis is in a contract year. So even if you want to attack this cornerback position in the draft, those are still unknowns. But what you have in your hand right now is not only a known, but one of the best cornerbacks in the league in Daron Bland, opposite one of the best cornerbacks in the league in Trayvon Diggs. I say you go ahead and you give Daron Bland the bag as early as he's willing to accept it, and then you start to figure out the remainder after that.
I think they'll do that. I think we'll wake up here probably sometime in April, May, maybe even camp, and be like, oh, Daron Bland breaking news is signed to an extension. That's been their MO.
I'm here for that. I'm here for it.
Our second question comes from Mike Nice over on Twitter. He says, how long do we keep people like Bell, Deuce, and even Lance out of the starting lineup? Don't we need to know if these guys can deliver as full-time players or nah? And you can add in whoever else you want there, Pat, with the young group, because there's a gang of young players that at some point you're probably going to have to start seeing what's up as you head into an offseason with like 20-some free agents.
Man, listen, Mike Nice, you must be a diehard listener of Talking Cowboys because you are basically saying what I've been standing on the table for a couple weeks now, especially this week after seeing Cooper Rush only throw for 46 yards. And again, I think Cooper Rush is much better than that 46-yard game, but this situation, this outfit doesn't fit him like it did in 2022 when he had an offensive line that could protect and the defense that was taking the ball away, although the defense did take the ball away for him against the Eagles, and he still couldn't do anything with it. Why? Because the offensive line can't protect. Right. It's not a good look for him. So to that point, you got to unleash Trey Lance. For me, you have to put Trey Lance in the starting role. Now, they're not going to do that, at least not here against the Houston Texans. We'll see what that looks like against the Washington Commanders, maybe the New York Giants on Thanksgiving. I don't know. But if I'm GMing this thing, if I'm head coaching this thing, I'm like, you know what? I need evaluation on Trey Lance. I'm already paying him more than $5 million to hold the clipboard. No, we were waiting for an opportunity, not necessarily waiting for it, but the opportunity has now presented itself for him to actually get in-game regular season reps for full-blown evaluation, and you're holding him back while simultaneously standing at the podium and saying all he needs is reps. He needs reps. Well, which is it? right? So give Trey Lance the reps. And with Will Greer back in the building, I got a lot of love for Will Greer. And you see the note that he left on when he torched the guys in the preseason game, an emotional outing for him in his first stint. I say you unleash Trey Lance in a combination with Will Greer, and you let them battle it out to see who's going to be QB2 in 2025 and beyond. And then Deuce Vaughn, absolutely. What do you have there? You don't know because you haven't taken the reins off of him completely. Do that. Take the reins off of Hunter Lipke completely, and the list goes on and on. Tyler Dighton, he's dealing with a shoulder injury. Okay, let him rest that up. You know what you have in him. He's your rookie first-round pick. He's going to be on your starting offensive line going forward, 2025 and beyond. Show me some more of Awesome Richards, for example, so you know what that backup situation looks like. Zach Martin, he's dealing with some body issues. He's not playing as he normally plays. It's a good time to maybe let him rest, even if it's just a couple of games. Get TJ Bass in there. Let him get some reps. See what more you have there. So, I mean, I could go down the list, but I'm right there with you, Mike Nice. I say this is full-blown evaluation. If you guys go check out Science Lab on the .com that I posted yesterday, even if the Cowboys were to beat the Texans, it'd be entertaining in the moment. But right now, the playoff odds are 3%. They jump to a whopping 6% if they beat the Texans. I mean, what are we doing here? So be competitive, but at the same time, understand that guys like Deuce Vaughn, Hunter Lipke, Trey Lance, Will Greer, Awesome Richards, the list goes on. While you're evaluating these guys, you got to know that they know they're being evaluated, so they're going to play their hardest anyway. So I don't see what you have to lose is my point.
I agree. And honestly, it's not really so much about because, hey, maybe McCarthy's going to be he's on an expiring deal. I don't think he's going to be back. But the front office needs to know about these guys. Because McCarthy, even if he comes back, he's not going to have a say in signing players. That's more of a Stephen Jones, Will McClay thing. So Will McClay is going to be here. Stephen Jones is going to be here. McCarthy may not be here. The coach staff, some of these guys may not be here. So they need to know. Will and Stephen and Jerry, they need to know, hey, is Deuce worth something? Is Bell worth Lance? Awesome. Like, what are these guys worth moving forward with potentially a new coaching staff? If it's something, then you keep them around. If it's nothing, then maybe you look to offload some of these guys for something in return. Granted, they don't do that, but that's kind of how I would look at it.
Yeah, and I agree. And then when you start to look at even the safety position, for example, okay, it's not been the best season for Malik Cook or Donovan Wilson, and I'm on record as to identifying why it's not been a great season for Donovan Wilson. This scheme and Mike Zimmer doesn't fit him. They're asking Donovan to cover. That's the weakest part of his game. That's not what made him famous in Dallas. Get back to what Dan Quinn did with Donovan Wilson. Downhill player, blitz packages, run stopping, safety, kind of the Barry Church mode. That's where that is. But from a safety position, it's a perfect time once Wanye Thomas is clear from concussion protocol. Give him the reps. Give Marquise Bell these reps. Give these young safeties some reps so you can know what you have and to also better develop them for next season and beyond before it's too late. And now you're walking into contract negotiations with those young guys, but you don't really know what you have there yet. You know what their ceiling is as far as the potential goes, but you don't have a ton of film in regular season games. So, again, I'm right there with you, Mike Nice. I've been there for a couple of weeks now, more so after they fell to 3-6. Unleash the young bulls and let's see what you got.
Hey, man, we appreciate you coming through, Pat, as always, every week. This is Patrik Nosey Walker of .com. Again, plug that Science Lab one more time because I think people need to go take a look at that.
Yeah, check that out. Science Lab on DallasCowboys.com. It is identifying the Cowboys playoff odds at this point at 3-6. Just a quick teaser, they're 3% right now. If they lose to the Texans, drops to just over 1%. They beat the Texans, it goes to 6%. The Cowboys will basically there's a Mendoza line. The Cowboys have to win X amount of games out of their last 8 in order for any of these games to matter as far as potentially back into the playoffs. If you want to know what those numbers and those percentages are, I broke it down for you. Just head to the mothership and check that out.
My God, Patrik Nosey Walker, I got you. No sucker can deal because I'm talking science.
My God.
All right, brother. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, brother.
Peace.
Yes, sir.